Have you ever heard the term habitual offender? Can making an offense becomes a habit of a person or individual? In fact, under the Indian statute, nearly 15 states and union territories have laws targeting habitual offenders. These are the people who have been convicted for multiple crimes and who have served prison terms earlier, and even then they did not change their nature and continue to commit offenses. Then they will be categorized as habitual offenders. In fact, this concept of habitual offender has a very great past to it. In fact, not so great. If you observe it, the habitual offenders are individuals who are prone to crime, but earlier, under the British colonial rule, there used to be a classification for habitual offenders, which is called as criminal tribes. Let's have a look at the evolution of these habitual offenders. If you look at it, when the British came into India, because of the conditions created by the colonial rule, many people became unemployed. Many tribes were pushed out of the forest because of the colonial forest policies, and they had to face a loss of livelihood, displacement, and worse, poverty. Okay, and because of all these factors, some of the groups in India, they started resorting to dacoity, or sometimes they started resorting to minor offenses, or sometimes major offenses too, who are called as the dacoits or thugs of India. And in order to target these communities which have in fact made crime as a profession, the British government in the year 1793 passed a regulation called Regulation 22. And under this Regulation 22 of Lord Cornwallis, what they started doing is they started giving the district magistrate utmost power in order to in fact tag any community for suspicion of crime. The district magistrate have the right to in fact name a community as a community which is in fact prone to crime or offense. So it means that one particular community, maybe it might be involved in some offense. So on the suspicion of the same, the district magistrate can tag a community as a community which is prone to violence. Then later day, multiple communities and tribes across India have been targeted under Regulation 22. And later day, in 1860, when the Britishers have passed the Indian Penal Code, and in 1861, when they passed the Criminal Procedure Code, there also they had a register of dacoits and thugs, which contained a list of all communities which are prone to dacoity or thugi. In fact, after this, the Britishers in fact went one step ahead and passed an act called Criminal Tribes Act in 1871. And this act targeted multiple communities across the country and in fact gave them a stamp of criminal tribes. And once any community gets that stamp of criminal tribe, then they will not be able to find any productive employment. Their livelihood opportunities will not be, in fact, respected. And for whatever minor offense which happens in the area where the tribes are located, then these tribes would be arrested, they would be harassed, tortured, and given long terms of imprisonment. So this is one thing that used to happen to the tribes which have been categorized as criminal tribes. But categorizing not an individual but an entire community as prone to crime is a miscarriage of justice. Primarily because even before a person commits a crime, you are charging him to be a person belonging to criminal tribe, and these people are considered to be prone to violence and crime, and because of which reason you are in fact punishing the people even before they could possibly commit a crime. And the designation of a tribe or community under Criminal Tribe Act, it used to in fact lead to people in fact do a crime, or it in fact led people to accept crime as a profession. As the society treated them as thieves and criminals, they also had, or they were in fact forced into crime and in fact other kinds of activities, and their livelihoods were completely destroyed. And later day, what happened is once the British left India, in the year 1949, the Indian government has appointed a committee by the name of Criminal Tribes Act Inquiry Committee. And this committee has identified that designation of communities as criminal tribes is a wrong practice and this act should be repealed. But at the time when it was repealing the Criminal Tribes Act, it in fact called for enactment of an act for habitual offenders. When it comes to habitual offenders, these are not the communities but individuals who are prone to violence. So it means that the statute has changed from community-centered application to individual-centered application, and the individuals who have been convicted for multiple crimes, who have been multiple times convicted across their lifetime, they are designated as habitual offenders, and for them special laws have been adopted and special prison manuals also have been made, sir. But even though the name of the Criminal Tribe Act has been changed to Habitual Offender Act, the communities which were historically targeted under the Criminal Tribe Act, majority of the people of the same communities, they in fact started being targeted as habitual offenders. And once the Criminal Tribes Act has been repealed, the tribes which were earlier part of the criminal tribe list, they have been renamed as denotified, nomadic and semi-nomadic tribes of India, and many of them are also particularly vulnerable tribal groups of India. And these people were in fact, even though the colonial segregation has been lost, but the problem of the societal attitude continued to haunt them, and they faced the similar circumstances in the post-colonial period too. In fact, even though the name of the act has been changed, its application changed from community to individual, the police action, then along with that the administrative action against this tribe, it continued, and majority of the people who have been booked under habitual offender acts were the people who belong to the earlier criminal tribes. And because of this discrimination, because of this arrest, because of this under-trail conviction, so what happened is, among the people of the denotified tribes, there emerged a movement in order to assert their rights, guided by the NGOs. They started an organization called DNT, Rights Protection Group, and under the DNT Rights Action Group, they started putting pressure on the government in order to relook the Habitual Offender Act. And because of the pressure of this DNT-RAG group, what happened is in the year 2000 itself, the National Human Rights Commission made a recommendation to the central and state government to repeal all the Habitual Offender Act, primarily because the Habitual Offender Act is disproportionately targeting the denotified tribes, and along with disproportionately targeting them, it is in fact encouraging the stereotype and prejudices against certain communities, because of which reason it asked the state governments and central governments to repeal the Habitual Offenders Act. And in a confirmation of the same, in the October of 2024, under the leadership of Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, what happened is the Supreme Court also gave a judgment and said that most of these Habitual Offender Acts are constitutionally suspect, and along with being constitutionally suspect, in fact, they said that these acts are being used to target the members of denotified tribes, which needs to be repealed. The Supreme Court has given a suggestion. And after the suggestion, many states in fact revoked their Habitual Offender Act, but the state of Gujarat, it wanted continuation of the Habitual Offender Act, and along with that the state of Telangana, it said that this act is very important in order to prevent any crimes from happening. And along with that, in the states like Uttar Pradesh, most of the provisions of the Habitual Offender Act have been reenacted in the new name of Gunda Act, and it is being targeted or used to target the denotified tribes, and nearly 15 states are not ready to revoke this act. So we have to in fact look at these tribal communities in a humanistic way, and in fact propose for revocation of these acts which target certain communities and criminalize certain communities even before they commit crime, as we need to know that the Indian justice is based on the presumption that even though 100 criminals escape the criminal justice system, not even a single innocent person should be convicted for the crime that he did not commit. But the denotified tribes, which were earlier called as criminal tribes, have been subjected to historical injustice, and they have been multiple number of times targeted by the state agencies for the crimes that they did not commit. So keeping in consideration this view, we need to revoke all the Habitual Offender Acts, sir. థ్యాంక్ యూ.
కాంపిటేటివ్ ఎగ్జామ్ సంబంధించి ప్రత్యేకంగా సివిల్ సర్వీసెస్ ఎగ్జామ్ సంబంధించి ఏ ఆప్షన్ చూస్ చేసుకోవాలి, ప్రిపరేషన్ ఎప్పుడు స్టార్ట్ చేయాలి, ఏ బుక్స్ రిఫర్ చేయాలి, ఇలాంటి డౌట్స్ ఉంటే CSB-IAS అకాడమీని కాంటాక్ట్ అవ్వచ్చు. దీనికి సంబంధించి నా పర్సనల్ అపాయింట్మెంట్ ఈ వీడియో పైన డిస్ప్లే అవుతున్న కాంటాక్ట్ నెంబర్కి ఫోన్ చేసి తీసుకోవచ్చు.